the Rugby Championship and the Pacific Nations Cup, as well as our regular slots, looking at Mickey Mouse moments of the week and giving you a news roundup of what's going on around the game. And joining me to do... Oh, actually, hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul. I should introduce myself first. And then joining me to do all that is Stephen. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, very good. Thank you, Paul. Once again, a privilege and a pleasure. 2 nights in a row. I can't believe it. I feel blessed.
Well, I mean, imagine all the other things you could be doing with your life, and instead you're wasting it online with me. Thank you so much.
Well, it is just the two of us this evening, and people won't know it, but we were just listening to a bit of Grover Washington Jr., that great singer who brought out that song, just the two of us.
You did,
we actually went online, so it was great.
Well, the two of us and the potentially millions of people online via YouTube. So if you are live, thank you very much for joining us, and do say hi in the live chat and let us know your thoughts on everything that is going on. So quick roundup of some of the news highlights. The Shoot Shield reaches its last round this weekend, and there's been a bit of a storm in a teacup, if we're going to be honest, over in Australia, because Michael Checkers forgot to look up the rules. And he suggested that Pocock would get some club game time in the Shoot Shield, which is obviously the Sydney-based competition. A bit of a mud bath. Well, if you saw any of the Pacific Nations Cup from the weekend, you'll understand what the topic is about, Christopher. That's what the title's about. Everyone assumed he wasn't available, wasn't actually allowed to play in the Canberra competition because they've reached the finals, but apparently he is. So it's all a bit of a mess. So if you hear anything online about Pocock and Shoot Shield, please ignore it, because 95% of the people saying stuff don't know what they're talking about, which is perfect for Twitter, isn't it, Steve?
Oh, yeah, very much so. Sorry, I was miles away.
That's okay.
I was looking at something else.
Sorry. Yeah, so it is the end of the regular season. So see if you can catch that. Currie Cup is going on as we'd expect, and the Jaguares 15 are ripping it up in the championship over there, winning their games by 40 odd points or so, which is pretty good. And then I guess the first one that's first bit of news: the British and Irish Lions are talking about are in talks to do a women's tour. Have you seen that in the BBC?
Wow, no, that's really it. That really is big news. It's actually quite exciting news as well. And once again, it takes women's rugby to another sphere, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. And they're talking, and there's no details that have sort of come out as to what, when, or how, or that kind of stuff it might be. But the obvious place for them to go on tour is North America, with the Canada and the USA in the top 5 teams in the world currently, I think it is. Whereas if you look at something like Australia is 7th and South Africa are even lower, something like 9th, I think it is, in the world currently. So with New Zealand being number 1, that would be another place to go, but it would probably be either North America or New Zealand, you think, initially. The other thing that... What else have I got to say? Oh, yeah. The other thing is timing, because the Women's Rugby World Cup happens every 2 years alternately to the Rugby World Cup. And so if you look at that, and Biz Rugby, yes, we'll be getting on to talking about the mud bath that was Samoa versus Tonga later. But I've gone totally blank as to what I was going to say. That's useless, isn't it? God, here I am trying to be a professional and all. But anyway, the Women's Rugby World Cup happens on the same time as Lions tours. If they did it 2 years offset from that, the Women's Lions would happen on the same time as the Rugby World Cup or the Men's Rugby World Cup. And you've got to say, how much coverage would he get if they did that? So they're going to have to look at how it's timed. I would suggest the year after a Women's Rugby World Cup will be good, because that means that the nations that aren't the part of the Lions, such as England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, they'll be into their new cycle of 4 years and bringing in new players. Plus, whoever they're touring, players who were going to retire at the end of a World Cup cycle can stick around for just one more year to take part of it. So I think that would be a good way. Personally, I think that way you live the minimum disruption for Rugby World Cups, and also keep teams as strong as possible.
Paul, I wonder if they get a reasonable contingent of supporters that'll follow the team, because obviously the team will be made up of all the home nations. So I would imagine that'll bring quite a few supporters out of the woodwork. And would they be basically looking at a similar scenario, a 3-test series, say, against New Zealand or Australia or the USA?
Well, I don't think they would do a full tour of Australia at the moment. I don't think Australia's strong enough. But Krista does make a good point. They could tour Australia and New Zealand, so have one game against the Wallaroos, for example, like they've done in the past when they've had 2 games against New Zealand and one against Australia, and so forth. Lions used to do that, so you could, because I suppose you're not going to find there aren't the same sort of 5 Super Rugby sides to put in those midweek games. So, yep, they could definitely sort of throw in an extra one. I would expect them to do Canada and the USA. I wouldn't expect them to do just one or the other.
I suppose if they toured New Zealand, New Zealand could probably look at franchise teams. Probably a good idea, just so they can have reasonable sides that front up as opposition.
Well, you could do things like you could have like a North Island 15, a South Island 15. You could, for those warm up games, or you could look. Could we have a Maori Black Ferns side, for example? Again, play the Wallaroos as well. Add in the Test matches, and suddenly you're up to 7 games, which I think is probably going to be about as long as a tour would be. You'd think 7 or 8 games. If Canterbury or Auckland had a particularly strong side that year, then perhaps you could have them separately. But I think otherwise you would have. I think you'd probably go North Island, South Island kind of thing. Chris was right. It would mainly be in English with a few Irish because the English. But also, I mean, Scotland have got some full-time professionals now as well. So whilst they haven't got a fully professional squad in Scotland or Wales, there are a couple of girls there who are professionals who I think would make the side. So I don't think it would be exclusively white and green.
We shouldn't forget France is very strong at the minute.
It is. So that would be an interesting one. Yeah, could the British Irish Lions actually play France or tour France, or maybe France tours the other option of New Zealand or sort of North America at the same time. So that's an interesting development. Steve Maffey, do you remember that fella?
Steve Maffey.
Yep.
Steve Maffey. Oh, yep.
Sorry, my pronunciation's a little bit off. But he's joined London Irish to join Paddy Jackson, Sean O'Brien, Nick Phipps, Waisaki Naholo. London Irish has gone on a bit of a spending spree for talent, haven't they?
Are they the new promoted team, Paul?
That's correct. They're the newly promoted team into the Premiership, which is going to make next year again very tight. You'd expect the Newcastle Falcons to come back up from the Championship, and teams like Worcester or someone like Harlequins or someone who's having a bad season. Actually, Harlequins had a good season this time. So Leicester Tigers actually wasn't
a bad season
this year. But yeah, there's if you're having an off year, you could suddenly drop down by accident because there are some quality. That 12th place is getting stronger and stronger every single year.
No, I recall from All Black prop Ben Franks. I think he might have had a season or two with London Irish. Unfortunately for him, he also had a season. I think that particular season that he had might have been the second season they were actually relegated.
Well, yes, but I think he has had 2 seasons there. He had the first season they got relegated. Then he's played the last year in the Rugby Championship, but now he's gone to Northampton Saints, to where his brother's going post Rugby World Cup as well. Leicester or even Wasps could be in trouble looking at them next year. So it's going to be interesting next year as to how that all pans out. Other signing news: Geordie Barrett, 2 more years, or until 2022. Is that 3 more years at with the Hurricanes?
Yeah, listen, very very interesting. Well, it obviously came out today, and I think the thing that really surprised me, the Blues apparently were right in the running, and obviously they may be still in the running moving forward, because what I understand, he has a clause in his contract that he can basically out himself after his first year with the Hurricanes, or his first renewed year with the Hurricanes.
Right. Okay. I wasn't sure when he was signed up until, but there's been rumours connecting him with the Crusaders as well. So there's been plenty of rumours going around about him, but it does show he doesn't have to follow his brother. He's his own man now.
Yeah, very much so. People shouldn't forget one of the older Barretts, who was a loose forward, also played for the Blues as well. Oh, just can't remember the guy's name at this stage. He was a loose forward, I believe. So they're not the Bowden is not the first Barrett to have played for the Blues.
Oh wow! I didn't realise that he'd been up there. Yes, because there's actually five brothers, and yeah, one of them hasn't made it up to Super Rugby level. But I did see him running around in the Taranaki club scene when I was down there last year.
Paul, I did hear an interview with the dad, Smiley Barrett, and he pretty much said, "Listen, I haven't really got too much of a problem with the boys, maybe potentially all playing for the Blues, but what I do have an issue with, they've got to play for Taranaki in terms of Mitre 10 rugby."
And that's where they're all signed currently. If they don't play any Mitre 10 Cup rugby, let's be honest. But no. Talking of that, and something that I haven't actually talking about Mitre 10 Cup rugby, this weekend, Sonny Bill Williams is going to turn out for Counties Manukau down in against Bay of Plenty. We'll talk about that probably more tomorrow night on the All Blacks edition. But I'll be down there this weekend. So if you're at Kerry, is that how you say it?
Yeah, Kerry. Yeah.
There we go. So I'll be down there on Saturday. So if you're going to be down there, then do say hello. Look out for the old bucket hat. On Friday, I'm going to pop down to Otahonga to watch Waikato take on Taranaki. That's actually what we've just been talking about. And then on Sunday, I'll be at the Waikato Open Day at FMG Stadium. So if you're at any of those events, then do come over and say hello. I'll have my bucket hat on. Funnily enough. So yeah, so out and about. Yeah, getting excited for my Sync Up Rugby. If you've been watching Twitter, you'll see I've been applying for media passes left, right and centre. So hopefully they all come through so I can make all my games. And then the World Rugby Rankings. That draw between the All Blacks and the Springboks sees South Africa climb up to 4th in the table, England dropping down to 5th. So a little bit of change there. But those top 5 are clear of the rest, aren't they? In that rankings.
From what I believe, had the All Blacks lost that game
by Wales 15 points.
By 15 points, Wales would have. I don't know if that was ever going to happen, but Wales would have been the number 1 ranked team, and boy, that'd be unheard of, wouldn't it?
It would, because there's only been 3 teams ever ranked number 1 in the world. England, South Africa are the other 2, and New Zealand obviously have had it the vast majority of the time since they've been in place. But to give you an idea, in New Zealand are on 91.54 points, and England on 86.27. Sorry, so about a 5-point gap between the two of them, just over. And then Australia on 81.91, so about a 4.3 gap between England and Australia, which shows those top 5. That the spread across them is about the same as the gap between 5th and 6th. So those top 5 really are. I'll do a video about this for my Patreons, but I think those top 5 are basically 5 that have got some chance of winning the Rugby World Cup, and everyone else is, a bit of a long shot.
Yeah, I think for somebody like, if you're speaking long shots, I'm probably thinking more sort of like Argentina or France. That would really throw the cat amongst the pigeons. If the likes of Argentina, although I'm saying that you never know if the cards fall their way with France, who knows? You just don't know what you're going to get. That can be dangerous, and we all know in World Cups they tend to perform.
They do. It's going to be interesting to see whether Scotland. I mean, this is one of their higher rankings going into Rugby World Cup. Can they actually do? Can they pull it out? They've been promising quite a bit recently. Talking of Rugby World Cup, and Italy dropped below. Sorry, Italy climbed above Tonga, or Tonga dropped below Italy because Italy didn't change. But Tonga's loss to Japan means they dropped from 13th to 14th in the world rankings. So not particularly, not a good result for them. In Samoa at the weekend, and yeah, Biz Rugby says can't believe the game was allowed to go ahead between Samoa and Tonga. If this match was between two tier one nations, this would never happen. What do you think?
Yeah, well, when the story first broke, I thought to myself, well, let's cue Eliota Fui Maono Sapulu, who's the former Samoan international who is a lawyer these days, and he always has plenty to say on these sort of issues. You know, interestingly enough, we were having a chat off air about it, and I think we both came to the agreement that, listen, I think it's up to the home country to ensure that you've got a ground of quality. Now, listen, Samoa have been hosting international matches for a while, and to be honest, that's not the first time I've actually seen that ground in that sort of poor condition. I can remember Scotland playing a test match there a few years ago, and the conditions, whilst they weren't as poor as they were on the weekend, they weren't too dissimilar. And listen, if you sort of look at a competition like the Gallagher Premiership, I can remember many of those games from years ago where a lot of the quality of the grounds were very poor. They'd all cut up, but you could easily say Bath's ground, the recreation grounds, that's probably the only ground that's probably not what you could say is truly up to professional quality standard. And listen, at the end of the day, I just think it's up to the host to actually ensure that you've got a quality ground. Wouldn't take too much to turn it around. You're looking at basically sand slitting the ground and building it up so it can basically retain the water. Paul, I think that's probably one of the real key things.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Would this have gone ahead with two tier one nations? No. Would a tier one nation have a pitch that would allow that to happen? No. So we would never see that for a tier one nation nowadays. Yeah. We've had a few problems with cutting up grounds. Maybe in Australia, we've seen that occasionally, and also occasionally in New Zealand. But as far as waterlogged going, there's no way a tier one pitch would do that. So they would take that amount of rain and be able to cope. So it does come down to that. I think a lot of this, the anger has been a little bit misplaced when they go, hey, would World Rugby allow this? Well, would tier one teams allow this? Well, look, tier one countries, World Rugby didn't provide this pitch. This pitch was provided by Samoa at the end of the day. So would it happen for tier one? No, it wouldn't. It is a matter of these places moving forwards and getting better.
And listen, I'll always throw this little asterisk in as well. You know, there's been a lot of talk in and around Samoan rugby administration in terms of the way the game is administered over there. Been a lot of comments about that. But I think if you want to host top international teams, you've got to have a quality ground. In the story, if you sort of look at the Fiji National Stadium, seems to be it seems to be a pretty good stadium. I can recall being there a couple of years ago and viewing an under-19 final at the National Stadium, and they just had a torrent of rain, one of these downpours that you get up in the island. And to be honest, the ground looked in reasonably good condition. It looked like it actually soaked up the water reasonably well. And I think as long as you've got good footing for the players, I think that's pretty much the main thing on Saturday.
Yeah, especially with modern balls, because modern balls nowadays are grippy. If not like a leather skin ball that becomes a bar of soap when it gets wet. It's about, can you trust your footing to do side steps? If you can't, and you're going to fall flat in your face, you're not going to try it. And then suddenly the rugby becomes much more just power based. Let's be honest. And at the weekend, let's be honest, they couldn't trust their footing. And we still had a couple of nice moves, but But on the whole, yeah, hard work there.
Oh, listen, some good skill though. There was,
Mm.
I think, the last try that was scored by Samoa. Boy, there was a great offload in there in those conditions. So there was in between all the mud and the poor ground conditions. There was some good footy. Both teams, to give them a bit of credit, attempted to at least still move the ball around.
Yeah, it finished 25-17 to Samoa. I'm not really sure how much we can take out of that and read into the other games going forwards. But that's how that one finished. And it saw Tonga, as we say, drop down one place in the world rankings. The other games that happened: Japan versus Fiji, and Japan basically I think it was 27-10 at half time, or 27-14, sorry, at half time. And basically, yeah, it'd been wrapped up by then. Japan really using their line out and their set piece against Fiji, and you can probably see why Australia have gone for a big pack this year.
Oh, very, very much so. Tough for Fiji. They've had that two-test series against the Maori, and a little bit more travel involved. And this Japanese team would be pretty fresh if you can imagine the time that Jamie Joseph has had this team in training camp. It seems like forever, Paul. So yeah, those guys are probably just jumping out of their skin to play some code.
Yeah, I put my predictions out for round two on the DrivingMaul.com earlier today, and one of the points I made in that is that yes, Jamie Joseph has been very clear that this year that everything for Japanese rugby is about the Rugby World Cup. Super Rugby did not matter at all. It's all about this, and it looks like he's got them ticking for the big show and looking good. So that was a good performance by them. The USA 47-19 for Canada. Comfortable win for the USA. Well done,
Yeah,
beating
yeah,
Canada.
Paul. Yeah, Paul. I actually I watched quite a bit of that game, and listen, the USA weren't at full strength either, but they still, one of the key areas where they dominated was up front. Their scrum was really, really impressive. For Canada, Tyler Ardron was playing number 8, and he was sort of like a bit of a lone ranger, if you know what I mean. Himself, you saw a little bit of Olmsted there as well, which a lot of two players and a lot of New Zealanders would know. Olmsted having played Mitre 10 for Auckland last year, and of course Tyler Ardron being part of the Chiefs setup for a few seasons. Now they showed their class, but boy, credit to the USA. There was they moved the ball around quite a bit, and they were able to sort of manipulate space and find good holes. But they look a well coached side.
No, absolutely. And some of the points I've read in the papers is that they're talking about Major League Rugby being a real benefit for them. And yeah, 2 seasons of being fully professional, and things like you've had more time to practice your skills. You had a lot more time to get your fitness right. Now I think about half the side were Major League Rugby players. So yeah, the whole fitness, they can play the full 80. Canada with the Arrows in their first season and only having one team in Major League Rugby are definitely at a disadvantage. And the administration in Canada is going through a tough time at the moment. They've done, and it's going to be tough for them at the Rugby World Cup. Let's be honest.
The point was made during the commentary that the Team USA had been in pretty much training camp for about 3 weeks, where the Canadian boys had been together barely a week, and it really showed.
Yep. Those 2 teams fly over to Fiji, where there'll be a double header this weekend. Samoa versus the USA opens the day, followed by Fiji versus Canada. So if you're in Suva, get down for those 2 games, say back to back at the same stadium. Tonga then travel over to Japan to play Japan, and I think it's going to be pretty simple. That if you look at those 3 games, the USA against Samoa, say a well drilled outfit, been together for a while. That's going to be a tough old game for Samoa.
Mm-hmm.
Canada, as we've just said, not in a good place. Fiji looking to bounce back from that Japan one, so I think we'll probably see a better home win there. And then Japan, we just said, well drilled outfit. Tonga's going to have a long old day of it, I think, up in Japan.
Listen, Paul, it's really fantastic for these Pacific Nations Cup teams to actually go into a World Cup with some games under their belt, and good good competition, good quality. So they'll be hardened as well. It's great to see.
Yeah, no, it's good to see. But I think a lot of us got on the Fiji bandwagon, and are probably a bit disappointed now that they lost to Japan, because we were looking at them turning over Australia at the Rugby World Cup. I think my expectations have been become a bit more realistic now for that game. Perhaps I was getting a little bit too much on the bandwagon there as well. So Mickey Mouse moments of the weekend. Clearly, the rain and the mud bath in not Suva, sorry, because it was in that's Fiji, wrong country. In Samoa,
Apia,
that's it. Thank you. Has got to be one of them. Any Mickey Mouse moments for you this weekend?
Oh God, I listen. Both those games were, both the test matches we got to view on Saturday evening were quite tight contests, but I don't know if there were too much in the way. They were both so intense. I don't think there was too many Mickey Mouse moments from those games. I'm just trying to think at the moment. There's probably nothing really comes to mind at this stage, Paul. But I think probably those conditions at Apia Park, probably it looked like a throwback to the 60s and 70s, didn't it?
Absolutely. Yep, totally. The other Mickey Mouse thing would be there was a tweet that went out showing a clip of rugby from the Wallabies Pumas game, saying this series of play had it all. Absolutely, it did have it all. It had 3 turnovers, about 4 or 5 drop balls. Very little rugby skill. That was Mickey Mouse.
There's only one problem. That wasn't a moment. There were moments.
The moments, yes, sorry.
Mickey Mouse moments.
Oh, Batman says mine was South Africa's last try was a bit of Mickey. Well, no, it was definitely Aaron Smith got had his back pockets burgled by Herschel Yanchis in that one. Bit of pickboxing.
The other Mickey Mouse moment, a little bit of talk around about Bowden Barrett poaching a few metres. I don't. There may be some parts in the world you could probably identify that as a bit of taking the Mickey, but probably in South Africa, I don't think they were very impressed with it at all.
No, there has definitely been a bit of bandwagoning on the old Twitter and probably on Facebook as well, about him rolling that of just kicking that ball forward a few meters. Now, if you ever see a player kicking a ball behind the mark, it's an absolute miracle. They always step over the mark and take about 1 or 2 more steps before they kick it. Every single player will roll the ball forward as he puts it down when pointing at the posts. Did he go a little bit far with this one? Yes, probably. This was a bit more extreme than we normally see it. But hey, every single player does it to a greater or lesser degree.
It's a bit of gamesmanship, isn't it? They're just trying it on, and if you can get away with it, you can get away with it. Unfortunately, he pulled the wool over the officials' eyes and got away with it.
Absolutely, he did. Yeah, and so they get away with it every game. It's just a matter of how far they get away with it. To be honest, that's very true. A couple of comments in the chat. Thomas, great to see you online. We've already talked about the mud bath. James Slater saying that he can see the Argentinians being knackered come the Rugby World Cup. They looked a bit tired or out on their feet against the Wallabies. Yeah. And look, this is the problem with them only having one professional team. Sure, they had 4 players in the starting lineup. Yeah, in the starting lineup who played in Europe for the Pumas. So it's not just the Jaguares all over again. It is Jaguares plus friends, but it is just still plus friends rather than Jaguares being one of a team. And yes, they're going to have to rotate and rest their players between now and the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, it could almost explain the number of errors that they were making, because it was quite at times I found it a bit of a listless performance, and they just weren't too sure what they were all about. They had opportunities, some really good opportunities. I can recall one really good break, and if they'd finished it off, and it was really only one pass away from being a very, very good try. But listen, in the main, they just couldn't get going, could they? They couldn't. They were having trouble at scrum time. They were having trouble at line out time. Probably missing the leadership of Augustine Creevy. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, definitely. He was missing. He was injured this weekend. And when you see that the guy who came off the bench, I think it was his debut, and you're saying like, wow, okay, that's the depth that Argentina rugby has. Is that their third choice hooker at the moment is a rookie. Has never played international rugby before, and that has got to be a little bit of a concern for them. Come to this, we will. So that's got to be a problem for them as far as being able to rotate and rest players, that kind of thing. What we've seen these past 2 weeks, I think, and also against the All Blacks, they had lots of possession against the All Blacks in territory, but couldn't find that cutting edge to score the try. Potentially similar sort of thing in the Super Rugby final as well against the Crusaders. They just couldn't finish some of the opportunities they've got, and that's becoming a worrying trend over these last 3 games. As they've had opportunities, but they've just not been able to finish and put the points on the board. And at the end of the day, all the stats you can read off, but the one that matters is the one on the scoreboard.
It's interesting. You mentioned Australia before going for a lot of size, and that is a really big back row that they're fielding at the minute. You know, they've got oh god, just it got out of my head, the number 6 that's normally a lock that plays for them. Naisamanu was number 8, and Pocock, Hooper in the 7 jersey. So that's a good battery of line out jumpers that they've actually got. On saying that, they caught the same issue that the Pumas were having, just not holding ball in the second half, and it didn't make for a great half of footy.
No, it didn't. No, not at all. Moving on to the other game, we dissected the game in detail last night. So if you want to have a roundup of both these 2 games in detail, then Stephen and I had a half-hour chat last night, so you can go back and check that out. So the Rugby Championship 2019 Round 2 review. If you whack that into your YouTube search, you can find it, or it'll be available on the DrivingMaul podcast as well. So you can get it from both those places. A draw for these 2 sides. And you've heading towards the Rugby World Cup. Let's see now. It's they've had 2 losses in 2016, 2 in 2017, 2 in 2018, I think it is. Or was it 1 in 20? Sorry, 1 in. But they had like 5 losses. That's about 2 or 3 more than they normally have, or they had in the previous 4 years. Are you starting to get a little bit worried that the gap's closed somewhat?
I think what we saw a few seasons back was I think they're outskilling everybody. I don't know if they were that much better than everybody, but they were nailing all their opportunities, and usually with a lot of skill. I think what a lot of coaches have basically done is looked at the style in which the All Blacks play and thought to themselves, man, how can we actually shut down what they're so good at? And a lot of the teams using a lot of line speed, hence the All Black coaches have gone for the double playmakers. I can totally understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to break up line speed by confusing line speed, having 2 pivots parked on either side, Paul. But unfortunately, at the moment, the thing that's letting them down is actually their skills, just basic handling and passing.
Yeah, one of the things we'll talk about tomorrow night in the All Black session is I have gone back and I've looked at the 5 losses from since the Rugby World Cup last year. So that's Ireland in Chicago, the Wallabies in Brisbane, Ireland in Dublin. First before that, British and Irish Lions in Wellington, Ireland in Dublin, and also South Africa, the Springboks in Wellington last year. So I've gone through those 5. I've picked up some stats, and that will be one of our key discussion points on the All Blacks edition tomorrow night. So join us for that, and you can see what I think is where I think the All Blacks have fallen down, and we'll go through that. But Batman's asked us, how would you react if the All Blacks lose to Australia in a few weeks? apart from sort of passing out in shock, and needing some smelling salts to wake you up after that performance by the Wallabies. I think I'd be pretty concerned if they lost to a Wallabies side that made that many mistakes at the weekend.
Houston, we have an issue. Yeah, it'd be concerning simply because we were looking for a level of improvement on Saturday. Admittedly, a lot of changes, so you're changing up all your combinations, but they should be. I think Steve Hansen has made it pretty clear that the Bledisloe Cup is important to this team. They want to hold onto it. They want to retain it. I'll tell you what, it's a confidence thing. You know, Rasmus has spoken about the confidence that they've gleaned from that win last year. And look, they got to take a lot of confidence as well that they also picked up a draw on the weekend as well. They came back from literally looking down and out to get a try right at the death and share the spoils. So there's a lot of confidence. On the other side of it, all of a sudden, when your game plans aren't working, passes aren't sticking, and you throw in a loss, gee whiz, the confidence. It's a hard thing to get back up again. I can't believe we're actually talking about the All Blacks, but we are preempting it if they lose. I'm expecting a bounce back.
Yeah, I'm expecting a bounce back. I mean, a couple of things. So yes, and a bit in the same way like Jamie Joseph basically wrote off the Super Rugby for the Sunwolves. Steve Hansen has said these first two games about giving everybody a game, and that's pretty much what he's done. I mean, we've had what I think it was Retallick, Bowden Barrett, and Ben Smith were the three players at the start of the previous weekend. Now, to be fair, the Springboks did the exact same thing with Ebenezer, Peter Steph-Toy, and I've gone blank as to who the third person was, but only three players again started both weekends. So both sides have shown their depth and given everyone a run out, which is great for them. Which clearly the Jaguares and the Wallabies haven't been able to do, which gives you a different idea as to the different level between those two.
I gotta say, Paul, isn't it really incredible where South Africa have come from? When we were sort of only a couple of years ago, we can all remember the absolute pasting they got up at North Harbour Stadium. What was it, 57 zip or something?
It was
ridiculous.
Like 44 points or 47-point win. Yeah, it was a big one. Yes,
it was a big win, and we were all thinking with the number of players they were losing offshore, the quota system. We thought, man, can they actually recover? Well, they've just shown it. Yep, they can. And when you consider they've lost a lot of players that are still all playing in Europe, the great thing about it, I think they now have a batch of players, or they just have a dearth of players that can step into that green and gold jersey.
Yes, and I think there's been a couple of parts of that. We will. Batman seems to think it was 58-0, but either way, yeah, it was an absolute pasting. But it's interesting what they've gone and said now. So a couple of things. So something that the Springboks and Pumas have done in the past is they've had agreements with clubs in Europe to say, hey, we'll play them during the Rugby Championship, but we won't play them in November or vice versa and all that kind of stuff. Now, both Rasmus Rasmussen and Argent and the Pumas have come out publicly and said, right, post-Rugby World Cup, no more agreements. When we can have our players, we're having them. None of this kind of stuff of giving them back and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be interesting. So that's been one change that South Africa brought in. Secondly is they've, and of course this is perhaps just now rather than what's led to where they are now, but is they've changed the budgets for the teams. So the Cheetahs, Kings will have the same salary cap as the four Super Rugby franchises. And then the Griquas and the Pumas, who are the other two in the Currie Cup Premiership, will have a lower salary cap because they only have to compete in that one competition. So that's also changing things as well as the spread of talent. when that talent's playing. But we are going to see more talent go overseas. But the warning for those clubs is they're going to lose those players as much as
Mm.
the Springboks can take them.
It's interesting, Paul. One other area where I think they're really good at the moment. I think they're really good in the halves at this stage. They've got some real quality in Faf de Klerk and Andre Pollard, two world class halves that can direct this ship around. And at the back, they've got a really good, experienced campaigner in Willie LaRue, who's let's face it, he's a world class fullback. If you think about the fullbacks that are currently running around in the game at the moment, you could probably arguably say with Israel Folau no longer in the picture, is Ben Smith still the number one fullback in the world? I'm not so sure. You sort of look around, Willie LaRue, man, he's been tidy for a couple of seasons.
Buffetti's pretty sharp as well. He's coming back from injury. You got Stuart Hogg from Scotland, also another class act as well. So yeah, there's a few out there.
And then you
now,
and then you look into their you look. They've got a good battery of locks as well. Epsabet, Steph de Toy. They've got RJ Snowman and
the human wrecking ball who kind of go around injuring players.
And then you got the other. You got the guy I call the man kid, Luke Delaga. Luke Delaga still looks like a kid. You know, he's monstrous. So you got four big quality locks there, and I think they're a different team too with Dwayne Van Meulen back at number 8. And gee man, somebody's going to be unlucky in that squad because I don't know how many locks they're picking. But you've also got Mostard, Franco Mostard as well, who's who pretty much holds his own. He's probably the smallest out of all the locks that they've got, but he's the sort of guy you could probably fit into 6. And I think finally the pennies dropped. They've actually got a natural fetcher at the minute in Quagga Smith.
In Quagga Smith or Francois Lowe. You've got two guys who are happy to do that kind of role. By the way, my little comment about Steinman there was no, he was perfectly legal in what he did. Don't worry, that was just the size and power of him. So they have got depth. We used to think that England sort of with George Cruis, Curtly Laws, gone blank, Launchbury, and the other guy from Saracens. Itoji.
Murray Itoji, yeah.
Yeah. So with those four, it's like, hey, England have got 4 world class locks. They've got the greatest depth at lock in the world because New Zealand's got 3, and then we're kind of wondering who the fourth is. But no, now South Africa, you just named 5 world class locks off without even having to look around. So yeah, they have got some real strength in depth in some really good positions and people, as you say, are going to miss out.
I'm expecting all those guys to be named as well, and they're pretty they're solid in the front row as well. You know, Stephen Christoph looks a really good, solid footballer. Malcolm Marks in the front row. A little bit of question mark over his line-out throwing, but boy, you know what he can do you know what he can basically do. There's some good times for the Springboks at the moment, and I for one, I think it's great to see. I really do. They were the traditional old foe for All Black supporters, and it's great to see them back being really, really competitive. Hopefully not in the first game of the World Cup. Hopefully not.
Yeah, and we need competitive sides at the end of the day, and that's to keep rugby being interesting. Otherwise, what's the point? Just going to go back to take us back to the All Blacks. One of Batman's comments. He reckons the All Blacks need Tom Robertson at 6 and get Nonu in for Sonny Bill Williams. Now, Tom Robertson maybe in the future, but we are talking. Yeah, he is not ready yet. You wouldn't throw him in this close to a World Cup, would you?
Yeah, I think Batman, if you're listening, he's a player I know quite a bit about him. He's a player with a heck of a lot of potential. Unfortunately, he's actually the other little anomaly. He's actually injured at the moment. He's not scheduled to be back. I think maybe he's scheduled back about halfway through Mitre 10 Cup season. But yeah, he's still got a bit to learn, and there were sort of examples of that during the season. Well, love the guy's energy. Geez, he's just so full of energy. But what he needs to get into his game is accuracy, and we saw that a couple of times during the season where he was skint down the blind side.
Mm-hmm.
He was virtually basically stuck on the scrum when the blindside winger was running past him, sort of thing. So, and he'll get better. He's not totally experienced at a 6. I think that was his first full season as in the number 6 jersey. Even in terms of when he was running out for Northland, he was moving in between lock and 6. Just on Manonu. Gee whiz, I don't know. Listen, if they don't take Sonny Bill Williams, it'll probably be Nani Lamapi who'll be going. At the minute, it suggests to me, you suggest Sonny Bill obviously playing in a preseason game this Friday, Paul.
Yeah, Sonny Bill this Saturday for Counties Manukau.
That basically says to me the fact that the All Blacks have sent him away to play more rugby, they're concerned that he's not quite up to standard, and they want to see him play a little bit more rugby. They'll probably see how it eventuates with this test against Australia, and then there might be the last opportunity to pull him on. I actually think he's on notice.
Well, I saw something today suggesting that he was going to be playing for the county's home game the following weekend. So there is, maybe he's going to miss the first Bledisloe Cup game. Maybe he's going to be playing a couple of games for counties, which will be interesting. But obviously we're expecting Crosby to come. Sorry,
Paul. I was going to say, if we turn it the other way, maybe they've basically said, "Oh, yeah, we've seen enough, but what we want you to do is go away and play some more rugby. You're in the team." That's the other.
Yep. I think he's in the team. I think what we saw at the weekend, with his pass that put Barrett into space, and that's not what we consider his. That's if you say what is Sonny Bill Williams' game, it's to run it up, take contact, get his arms free, and offload it. We didn't see a lot of that at the weekend. No, true, but what we did see was him still happy to carry and present the ball well, and also that long pass or decent length pass to put Barrett into space. His game has changed. So people who go, but he's not doing what he did at the last Rugby World Cup. No, he's not. The other point you also made last night, and I can't remember if it was on the show or if it was off air, because folks, we talk a lot like this off air. Perhaps not as structured. He's played something like 30 odd games since the last Rugby World Cup. That's how much a player in Europe will play in one season. He's played one season in the past 3.5 years. He needs game time.
Yeah.
Now, Nonu has a decent highlight reel from the Super Rugby. Not great, but a decent one. What that doesn't show you is all the stuff he didn't do and all the time he was caught out defensively. And yeah, he wasn't the Nonu from 4 years ago either. For the Blues, let's be honest. So
yeah, and don't be surprised if he's signed off. I see the Wellington Mitre 10 Cup team was announced a few days back, and he wasn't part of that squad, which pretty much suggests to me that he's probably heading offshore.
He is. Talking of sort of ex-All Blacks and this sort of stuff, apparently there's going to be an ex-All Black running around in the Heartland Championship. So that was the rumour I heard on the sideline last weekend at some club rugby that I got to. So from some members of the Heartland Championship committee, in fact, and also other people involved in kind of recruitment of players. So they didn't have a name, but there's a rumour going around that yes, we're going to have an ex-All Black in the Heartland Championship this year. So keep your eyes and ears out for that. That'll probably get announced in the next week or so.
Well, I can name one that's in the Heartland Championship. He's going to be playing for East Coast, or is that a scoop?
No, go for it.
Zach Guilford.
Oh, he's signed for East Coast, is he?
He's signed for East Coast.
Oh, okay. That'll be interesting. There you go. So that's who it is then. Zach Guilford is signed for East Coast then. So that is Gisborne way, right?
Yeah. Just north of Gisborne.
North of Gisborne. Okay.
This is just my granddaughter. Good night, darling.
So yes, so basically, so for those of you who are not in New Zealand, about halfway down the right-hand side of the North Island, which is good because that means he can, because he lives and plays his club rugby in Hamilton, so he should be able to live most of his time up here in Hamilton, where he's got a good family network around him. Because let's be honest, he's had his issues before, and he needs his network around him to keep him on the straight and narrow, I think. Cool. So there you go, folks. That's who it is. I did see him run out for Fraser Tech actually in the last regular season game of club rugby here, and yeah, he was captaining the side, which is good to see, and yeah, good to see him on the pitch. Any other final things before we clock off? I think we've run through most stuff.
No, I think we've pretty much hit it on the head. Like I say, no international rugby championship until what is it? Another 10 or 11 days or so, I think it is.
So yeah, the rugby championship takes a weekend off, but the Pacific Nations Cup doesn't. So keep your eyes out for those games. Yes, as I said, Samoa, USA, Fiji, Canada, and Japan, Tonga.
And a lot of obviously still probably another week of pre-season footy when it comes to Mitre 10 Cup. If you're in the Mahurangi area or the Warkworth area, Northern taking on North Harbour at 12:30 p.m. on Thursday. So
are you making it to that game?
No, I'm not. No, there's a bit of Mitre 10 Cup rugby to come, so I'll wait until they start playing the real stuff.
As I said, I'll be at Otagonga on Friday for a 1 p.m. kickoff between Waikato and Taranaki, and then I'll be at Kirikiri or Karikari, or however you say it, on Saturday for Bay of Plenty versus County Manukau, and then on Sunday I will be at FMG Stadium here in Hamilton for the Waikato Open Day. So if you're at any of those events, come and say hello. I'll have this hat on because my other hat's away, been lent to somebody for something that's super secret, i.e. I'm having a logo made, so look out for some merch coming out soon, t-shirts and hoodies. Thank you very much, Stephen, for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow night with Michael and Ashwin for the All Blacks edition, where we'll have an hour of just talking All Blacks. Some of the stuff on the radar for that one, we'll be talking about that two-playmaker Mo'unga Barrett situation. We'll be talking about, have the All Blacks lost the Rugby World Cup already now that Retallick's injured, and a whole bunch of other stuff like that as well. So join myself and Michael and Ashwin tomorrow night. Bye.
Fantastic, sir.